Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome here to the Wine with Jimmy channel. Thank you for clicking by. This is all about wine education for those of you who want to know more about certain topics, regions, grape varieties, and so on, but also specifically designed for those of you studying the world of wine. So you can, of course, really get the key information for your examinations to smash it out the park. This is a video based on the WSET Diploma. So we're looking here at Western Australia and Margaret River. So this is series 5 on Western Australia, and this is the first part on the Margaret River. This is free content. Parts 2 and 3 are available to only those of you who subscribe to my e-learning platform over at www.winewithjimmy.com. If you have a comment or question about Wine with Jimmy and the portal that we have produced here, or perhaps about Margaret River, Western Australia, any recommends you may have, please do get in touch by commenting on this video below. Let's rock and roll, talking about Western Oz first of all. So the zone of Western Australia extends in a crescent around the southwestern tip of Western Australia. So it is, you can see here, there's the city of Perth, and then it extends down all the way down to Margaret River and down to the Great Southern as well. It contains 6 smaller regions, and outstanding wine is actually found across the whole of the Western Australia area, but really we'll focus on Margaret River and the Great Southern as the 2 focal points for the diploma series. And that's where we're going to begin. So we're going to talk about Margaret River, known locally as Margs. So we're going to talk a bit about Margs, and this is the peninsula at the very southwestern tip of Australia. It certainly is the most well-known part of Western Australia, with international acclaim and lots of plaudits around the world. Now, the first commercial vines were planted in Margaret River after the area was surveyed and analysed in the 1960s by viticultural scientist Dr. John Gladstones, who identified this area as real high potential for quality winemaking. The peninsula is surrounded by water on 3 sides. So we have the Indian Ocean. So you've got a map to the right-hand side just there. And the red dot, by the way, is Cullen Winery, where you see this picture. Now, north of this peninsula is Indian Ocean, and south of it is the Southern Ocean. So we therefore have water surrounding it, hence why this is a peninsula. So the region runs along the Western Australian coast from Cape Naturaliste to that's in the north, and then down to Cape Leeuwin. And that's about 60 miles to the south. So you've got about 100 kilometers from north to south with these 2 capes. So the Cape Naturaliste in the north and Cape Leeuwin right down in that southern section. So that's our location for Margaret River. Let's talk about climate and weather. So it occupies a latitude of about 34 degrees south. So this is, in fact, a rather low latitude, meaning that you're going to get generally much warmer conditions. So the oceans which surround 3 sides of Margaret River play a vital, important role in moderating temperature. Days do still remain quite warm, however. The Indian Ocean is relatively warm, meaning that temperatures do not drop away too much at night time. And this allows grapes to ripen longer each day than they can in regions with colder nights. So this contributes the rather ripe flavour profile that we can find across most Margaret River wines. The maritime influence and the really great airflow here also means that we have a rarity of spring frost. So spring frost risk is kept to a minimum. This is the Wise Winery in Eagle Bay, where you can clearly see the oceanic effect there. And the bottom right-hand corner, I've included the climatic data here. So you will see that The annual rainfall sits normally somewhere between 900 to around 1100 millimeters, but the growing season rainfall is actually only about a quarter of that, somewhere around 210 to 240 millimeters of rain. So it actually remains rather dry during those summer months. And mean temperatures fairly high, as you can see here, so 21 degrees Celsius. So, yes, that's what I've just mentioned just here. So, relatively high rainfall, but it is winter based. So, only 20 to 25% growing season rainfall. So, as we mentioned just before, topography of the area. So, it's a relatively flat region of gentle hills and valleys. Vineyards are generally less than 100 meters, typically 40 to 90 meters. That's Howard Park in your picture. But there is a low ridge that runs down the center of the region. Our geology here, so we find gravelly loam soils which are free draining, means that because of that low GSR, growing season rainfall, irrigation is actually essential. And irrigation will come from dams which store the winter rainfall. The soils are quite low in fertility, so this means we have generally lower vigor or moderated vigor. And the ridge that runs down the middle provides some shelter for the vineyards to the east, giving slightly warmer conditions. Now, that ridge, by the way, is called the Leeuwin Naturaliste Ridge, and that connects Cape Naturaliste in the north to Cape Leeuwin in the south. The granitic bedrock of the ridge is 150 to 600 million years old, and it's layered in places with 2 million-year-old limestone. And over time, that ridge has created a complex network of gneiss, schist, and granitic based soils, some of the oldest we find in the world. So, what are our grape varieties here? Cabernet Sauvignon is our leading black variety at about a fifth of plantations in 2023. And it's often blended with Merlot to produce rather lovely wines. We're talking generally quite high quality, medium plus to high acidity, medium plus to full body, high ripe tannins, and blackberry blackcurrant spice characteristics. Many are made in a Bordeaux style, matured in French oak, and you can have high percentages of new wood to that as well. The wines tend to be good to outstanding and mid to super premium priced, such as the Diana Madeleine from Cullen Wines, one of the top Cabernets in the whole area. Then we find Chardonnay. So Chardonnay, Semillon, and Sauvignon Blanc are all significantly planted here, and in fact account for over half, those three grapes, over half of plantations. So you have Chardonnay being the premium white wine for most producers. You'll find Margaret River Chardonnay being naturally high in acidity with medium plus to full bodied and concentrated stone fruit characteristics. Malolactic tends to be blocked in all but the coolest years to retain the natural high acidity levels. And there are a range of styles made from more delicate and linear to rounded and rich, but often barrel fermentation and maturation in French oak is common. Many winemakers will also do batonnage, lees, contact to add more weight. Typically, the wines are good to outstanding and mid to premium price. There is the Heytesbury Vasfelic Chardonnay on the right-hand side. Then we have Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon. They tend to be blended, but they can be found as varietals. But when they're blended, you'll find the wines tend to have high acidity with grassy, herbaceous, and fruity characteristics going from gooseberry to tropical. Many are fermented in stainless steel to retain the primary aromas, but the more expensive expressions may have some barrel fermentation to add texture, weight, and depth. Typically good to very good and mid-price. Voyager Estate, Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon on your right-hand side just there. That's it for part 1, looking at Margaret River. Please do get in touch. Leave a comment or a question if you have anything to say about Margaret River, perhaps your favourite wines from the area, favourite vintages, favourite restaurants. Please do share your information with others in the comments section below. Make sure you click like and subscribe. Now that brings me to a conclusion. Please do join me for part 2 on the Great Southern, and then part 3, all the other parts. These 2 will only be available to those of you who subscribe to my e-learning portal. That's over at www.winewithjimmy.com. Well, I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now. Goodbye.